Conspiracy.
Join large-scale battles with military vehicles. The online action game War Thunder has received a major update. Direct Hit. Joining the battle are machine...
Because people have got
Chase. I'm actually doing something. Oh my gosh,
to know whether or not their president's a crook. Well, I'm not a crook. Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're counting down our picks for the top 20 conspiracy theories that turned out to be true.
What I saw happen to the children of Kuwait and to my country has changed my life forever.
For this list, we'll be looking at the most shocking conspiracies that ended up being true. Some of them were covered up or originally thought to be fiction, but have since been found to be based in fact. Did we forget one of your favorite conspiracy theories? Let us know in the comments below.
I will let you know because I am a
Number
detective.
20. Nazi officers tried to kill Hitler. Several efforts were made to assassinate Adolf Hitler during the height of World War II.
That kind of
Perhaps
makes
the most
sense.
famous one is sometimes known as Operation Valkyrie, otherwise referred to as the 20th of July plot.
The Führer, Adolf Hitler, is dead. A group of radicals in the SS are attempting to seize control of the government. Initiate Operation Valkyrie.
Members of the German resistance planned to set off a bomb during Hitler's visit to the Wolf's Lair headquarters. German army officer Klaus von Stauffenberg managed to place the hidden explosive, but the result failed to kill the Nazi leader. The other part of the plot involved seizing control of the military in the dictator's absence. Despite painstaking attempts to account for every move, the operation was discovered, and the co-conspirators were largely executed.
The rest of you are under arrest. No, General.
Taking them down.
The
I
film
see.
Valkyrie brought a renewed interest to the complicated story of the failed plot. Number 19. The U.S. Air Force was developing a gay bomb. How do you slow down an impending army?
Wait.
Instead of dropping lethal explosives, the U.S. military once considered an unexpected alternative.
What the heck is
Researchers
that?
considered the possibility of dropping a non-lethal bomb full of pheromone mixture on troops. Although this idea never reached the battlefield, the theory was that soldiers would be too distracted by each other to keep fighting.
That you will not only be disinclined to fight, but you will be compelled to be having sex with the people around you.
It's especially clear that
What?
authorities were really reaching with this particular idea.
Do they really think that, like, faced with, like, guns and, like, being killed, they're really going to choose sex?
This isn't to be confused with the theoretical and equally confusing concept of gaydar, which the Canadian authorities hoped would reveal people's sexual preferences. All the same, it's crazy to think that
What
any
is
amount
this?
of time was spent working on a gay bomb.
When the Pentagon says that
This is
they rejected
crazy.
this proposal, it's simply not true, and we have the facts to demonstrate that
What?
they've continued to think
So
about
a bomb
it
that
and consider it.
releases a
Number
pheromone.
18, Operation Menu. The Vietnam War affected neighboring nations in Southeast Asia, such as Cambodia. Northern Vietnamese troops used the eastern part of Cambodia for resupplying an encampment during the conflict. This prompted a bombing campaign from the U.S., which targeted Cambodian sites operating along the Vietnamese border. From 1969 to 1970, this bombardment leveled much of the area. This action was hugely controversial, given the force and destruction unleashed on the Cambodians, along with the fact that the secret operation was conducted on a non-combatant country. It later inspired Operation Freedom Deal, which was an even harsher campaign that cut deeper into the heart of Cambodia. Details of this scheme were largely revealed in a declassification from the year 2000.
They
Where's
can't
the
impeach me for
president?
bombing Cambodia. The
Nixon.
president can bomb anybody he likes. That's true.
Number 17. The U.S. worked with former Nazi scientists. Even though the Allies won the war and put many Nazi war
I
criminals
believe
on
that,
trial,
too.
that didn't stop the U.S. from hiring German scientists. These experts were later integral in the development of the U.S. space program and other military improvements during the Cold War. Many of them had close ties and allegiance to the Nazis, making this entire operation all the more controversial.
There was, on the one hand, the truth about the program kept secret, and on the other hand, the idea that we'll tell the public that these are the good Germans.
The Soviet Union also conducted a similar operation in attempts to bolster their post-war staying power. One of the recruits for the American side, Wernher von Braun, is considered among the more important figures in modern rocketry and early space travel.
Do you love Gantt charts?
No, I
Here's
do
how
not.
easily you
I
can
don't know
build
what
one
it is,
and
but I don't love it because we're not
Let's map-
sponsored by it.
Sometimes
We don't love things we're
celebrating
not
their
sponsored by.
achievements, the authorities also largely
Right.
disregarded many of the subjects' connections to atrocities. Number 16. The business plot coup.
Well, somebody's trying to do something dark and treacherous.
Known as the business plot, this little-known conspiracy wanted to bring down the presidency of Franklin D. Roosevelt. Although this was a nefarious coup plot, The case didn't come to light until the testimony of retired General Smedley Butler. Butler
Smedley?
asserted that he was asked to usurp the 32nd president
No wonder
of the
it didn't
United
work
States,
with a name like
partly
Smedley.
due to his support of veterans groups.
The plan as outlined to me was to form an organization of veterans, to use as a bluff or as a club at least, to intimidate the government and break down our democratic institutions.
Even with the general's revelations,
Okay.
some people questioned the veracity of certain details and the extent of the planning that took place. George H.W. Bush's father, Prescott Bush, has been linked to the plot, but it's still unconfirmed as to his ultimate involvement. David O. Russell's film Amsterdam is just one project that fictionalizes the events surrounding the scheme.
They're paying you to be their mouthpiece.
That's right, exactly.
And they know the veterans will follow.
Number 15, faked Gulf War testimony.
What I saw happen to the children of Kuwait and to my country has changed my life forever.
The Gulf War was a brief but
A lot
notable
of this
conflict
is for
preempted by
money.
the Iraqi invasion of
A lot of
Kuwait.
this is money.
The U.S. intervened soon after, using a number of stories to support the decision, including the testimony of a teenager.
Withdraw from Kuwait or face a coalition ready and willing to employ all means necessary.
She was known as Nayira, and her account of babies being removed from incubators in Kuwait shocked and helped sell the war to American citizens.
Took the incubators and left the children to die on the cold floor. It was horrifying.
It became a much-quoted story for President
Oh.
George H.W. Bush and other proponents of military action. Later revealed to be falsified, Nayira was actually the daughter of the Kuwaiti ambassador to the United States. She not only didn't see any crimes firsthand, but many details were generated by a PR firm. The case has become infamous as a deeply flawed attempt to sell the war.
I'm glad I'm 15, old enough to remember Kuwait before Saddam Hussein destroyed it, and young enough to rebuild it.
Number 14, Tuskegee Study.
They were never told that they had the disease.
One of the most horrifying chapters in American medical history came out of the Tuskegee Institute in Alabama. A research study offered black men free health care in exchange for a secretive and unethical observation, withholding syphilis diagnoses from participating members. Researchers from health organizations such as the U.S. Public Health Service attempted to study the effects of untreated syphilis without treating the patients.
Knowing that you were denied treatment and that you were lied to would affect anybody.
This also came at a time when penicillin was becoming a widely confirmed treatment for the sufferers of the disease.
And for the sake of science, they sacrificed some human beings. And it raised the question, did they really believe these men were human beings?
Not only was it a complete travesty perpetrated by the medical community, but it created a genuine distrust of the healthcare system among many people in the African American community.
What the United States government did was shameful, and I am sorry.
Number 13, Operation Condor. At this point, it's well known that the CIA had a large-scale and destructive influence on South American politics. Operation Condor was one such plan that completely altered the landscape of countries such as Argentina and Chile.
After this, we'll
By
look up
propping
alien
dictators like
conspiracy
Augusto
theories.
Pinochet, the U.S. helped
Because I
finance
ain't too
coups
big
of
in
various
government
leaders
conspiracy
across the
theories.
continent. The actions that were supported by American intelligence groups created irreversible damage in these nations, and thousands were killed.
Well, we just
President
gotta
Clinton
dip
eventually
our
declassified
toes in
more
it.
information about the operation and its effects, bringing forth new details about the plans to delegitimize
over
left-leaning
7.
political movements in the region. In the decades since Operation Condor, its lasting impact is still felt in the countries affected.
El tema de la figura del sobreviviente, ¿no es así? Que es una figura
Being a
bastante
survivor is a very
complicada.
complicated position. Question,
porque
why
todo el
did
mundo
they
es-
kill you?
la pregunta es
It's
de
something
rigor,
I
¿por qué
carried
no
with
te
me
mataron a
40
vos?
for 41
Number
years.
12, Bohemian Grove. Rumors have always swirled about secret societies and country clubs where elites meet up to discuss world affairs. In the case of Bohemian Grove, this accusation is at least partly true.
Wait,
Many of the
what?
most powerful and influential American figures of the 20th century met at the California Club. The place was reserved for people like
Really?
Ronald Reagan and Richard Nixon, along with a list of businessmen and even Nobel laureates.
Richard Nixon and Ronald Reagan had a talk there about who was going to run for president first.
And obviously Richard Nixon won that.
While one of their precepts involves leaving world affairs at the door, there's no shortage of evidence to the contrary. It was also the site of a meeting regarding the Manhattan Project.
The Manhattan Project was conceived at the Grove in 1942. The Manhattan Project of course, is what led to the atom bomb.
The presence of many U.S.
Aye.
presidents provokes even more gossip about the other conversations that took place there. Number 11. The FBI spied on John Lennon.
They're after us because we talk about peace, you know. I mean,
When John Lennon moved to the U.S. in the 70s, he became a target of FBI observation. His outspoken political beliefs were already controversial, and some U.S. leaders worried that he would influence the next election. With stories swirling about Lennon's possible tour, which was an apparent attempt to recruit young liberal voters, J. Edgar Hoover put the musician under close watch. Not only that, the artist was threatened with deportation during this period. Republican Richard Nixon ended up winning the 1972 election, but the attempts to kick the singer out of the country continued until a court ruling in 1975.
when we approach people for help, somebody somewhere rings them up and says, these people are criminals.
Unsurprisingly, this wasn't the first or last person hounded by the FBI, as their COINTEL program spied on many citizens and political groups.
Secret FBI memos made public today show that the late J. Edgar Hoover ordered a nationwide campaign to disrupt the activities of the New Left without telling any of his superiors about it.
Number 10. Big Tobacco's Big Lie.
There's extensive use of this technology, which is called ammonia chemistry, that allows for nicotine to be more rapidly absorbed in the lungs and therefore affect the brain and central nervous system.
Smoking causes lung cancer and a lot of other adverse health effects. Scientists demonstrated this definitively in the 1950s. However, public opinion wavered for decades, with sources springing up to generate controversy and debate. Some suspected that the tobacco industry was suppressing and distorting the facts through a coordinated campaign, and it eventually came out that they were. Together, the world's largest tobacco companies initiated Operation Berkshire to generate fake controversy and debate. Big Tobacco knew that smoking caused cancer and that nicotine was addictive. They decided not to make cigarettes less harmful because addiction made them a lot of money.
Now, the work we did here is confidential, not for public scrutiny, any more than our one's family
Well,
matters.
let's make it even worse for people and
Just
make
goes
it
to
more
show,
addiction.
where there's smoke, there's often fire.
See how camels agree with your throat. See how mild and good tasting a cigarette can be.
Number 9. The FBI spied on political activist groups.
All power to all the people!
Those involved in political protests and other activist causes are often paranoid that they're being watched. And they should be, because it's happened before and it can happen again.
Tapes from the hotel rooms, FBI reports, those are pieces of information that we shouldn't have.
From the late 50s to the early 70s, the FBI engaged in illegal surveillance, infiltration, and disruption of protest movements and other organizations deemed subversive.
Let's see.
When advertising on YouTube, I know that making an authentic video with a clear call to action is the key to getting results. That's why YouTube offers tools,
What in the hell is going on?
Excellent question. And the answer you're looking for lies right here.
Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're counting down our picks for the top 10 space and alien conspiracy theories of all time.
When you connect the dots between apparently unconnected people and situations and organizations, that's when the tapestry appears and you go, whoa.
For this list, we'll be looking at the most fascinating and memorable space and extraterrestrial-based conspiracies. Any theory qualifies if it was believed by some to be true at one time, even if it's been debunked. Which of these conspiracy theories do you find the most interesting? Let us know in the comments below. Number 10. Flat Earth. One of the most prominent conspiracy theories of the 21st century is that the Earth is flat. There was a time when the idea that the planet was a disk wasn't so far-fetched. But that was ages ago, when our scope of knowledge was still limited.
You mean the Earth isn't flat? I must have missed that part.
Boy, he has been in that lamp a long time.
Yet, despite a slew of scientific evidence to the contrary, some people still firmly believe that the Earth is flat.
Everybody here can agree on absolutely one thing, which is it is not a globe.
This conspiracy theory found new life upon the advent of the internet, as flat earthers found each other through social media and became a community of sorts. No matter what scientific evidence is presented, it's been difficult to convince proponents of the theory that the Earth is spherical.
You don't believe that they've gone to space?
No, not at all. The rockets go up, sure. There's nobody in them.
Number 9, the Philadelphia experiment. There's nothing like a good old sci-fi story to get the imaginative juices flowing. Ex-merchant marine Carl Allen once claimed that the military tried to make the USS Eldridge ship completely invisible.
Where did it go? Where did you send it?
I don't know.
They allegedly hoped to bend light around it by employing electrical generators. The experiment was said to be conducted at the Philadelphia Naval Shipyard. The story goes that in October of 1943, the ship broke the space-time continuum, and the Eldridge was teleported to Virginia and slightly back in time. It was further speculated that those on board suffered horrible consequences as a result. Most people have reached the conclusion that this is a simple hoax, and the Navy's official position seems to be that there was no Philadelphia experiment.
Did you really think you could destroy this ship? She's defied space.
Number 8, Men in Black. Here come the Men in Black, the Galaxy Defenders. That is, according to those who believe that there's a major plot underway to keep the alien UFOs a secret.
Well, why the big secret? People are smart. They can handle it.
A person is smart. People are dumb, panicky, dangerous animals, and you know it.
Within ufology, these agents are said to be mysterious government workers who coerce UFO eyewitnesses into silence. If coercion doesn't work, then they'll allegedly resort to more drastic measures.
Who are you? Really? Really? I am just a figment of your imagination.
John Keel, the famous author of the Mothman Prophecies, took it one step further and called the Men in Black demonic creatures. Of course, there's no solid evidence that they even actually exist. But since they're supposedly top-secret agents who are meant to be stealthy, the theory certainly helps ufologists explain the apparent lack of alien spaceships.
I could believe in the Men in Black being real. A top-secret government organization.
No.
I mean, it could not be aliens,
Number
but it
7,
could be something.
The Black Knight. Back in 1998, the STS-88 mission snapped a startling photograph. A long black object appeared to be orbiting the Earth. Naturally, the conspiracy theorists immediately got to work and claimed that this was an ancient alien satellite named the Black Knight.
Black Knight goes!
This wasn't the first time the idea of such a device was floated around, but it did help it gain traction. Believers say that it's been circling our planet for over 10,000 years, and that NASA has been keeping it a secret from the general population.
Watch out for incoming space junk!
However, NASA claims that the Black Knight is actually just space debris, with a prominent journalist named James Oberg further suggesting that it's a thermal blanket. Number 6, the Anunnaki. Famous conspiracy theorist Eric von Däniken released his seminal book Chariots of the Gods in 1968. In it, he posited that most world religions were created after humans were visited by ancient alien astronauts. The book was very popular, but largely discredited by academia. Still, the theory was continued by Zecharia Sitchin, who claimed that the Anunnaki deities came to Earth from a planet supposedly called Nibiru, created modern humans, and forced them to mine gold. Plus, they allegedly showed us agriculture and constructed the Great Pyramids of Egypt. David Icke also apparently claims that the Anunnaki are the evil force his famous conspiracy theory, which essentially calls politicians reptiles in disguise, hinges on.
But I've seen enough and heard enough to believe that it's real, and so I say it.
Number 5, the Tunguska event. During an early summer morning back in 1908, a large area of Siberia was decimated by a mysterious event. Over 800 square miles of forest was flattened, and about 80 million trees were reportedly destroyed. There was just one problem. As far as anyone could tell, nothing had hit the Earth. So what the heck happened?
People who observed that thought the end of the world had come, Judgment Day, divine intervention.
Contemporary reports blamed aliens, alleging that evidence of extraterrestrial involvement was found at the site. While that makes for a compelling story, it's not widely believed to be what occurred. It's now thought that a meteoroid measuring somewhere around 200 feet exploded in midair and leveled the surrounding area in what's called a meteor airburst.
As that blast wave hits the ground, there's a component of very high wind blowing radially outward from the center, from ground zero. And so that's the direction that the trees blow down.
Number 4, the face on Mars. It's one of the most popular images in space history. An eerie face resembling an old hockey mask emerging from the dust of Mars and peering up at the camera. It's quite a creepy picture, and it understandably spurred interest in extraterrestrial life. Some believe that the face on Mars is proof that there was an ancient Martian civilization. The official explanation is that the supposed face is actually just an instance of pareidolia, or seeing a pattern in something innocuous.
Some of this may just be a trick of the light, funny shaped rocks.
Apparently, this is just a normal hill whose face-like qualities are enhanced by specific lighting. It's not the only planetary phenomenon that spawned alien conspiracies, with the hexagon on Saturn standing out as another notable case. Number 3, Area 51. When it comes to aliens, few names are as prominent as Area 51.
So, this is Area 51, right?
No.
The secret military base?
No.
Where they keep the aliens?
Officially named Homey Airport, the facility belongs to the United States Air Force, who claims that it's notably used to test aircrafts. The work here is deemed top secret, so Area 51 has remained heavily guarded and protected since its founding in 1955.
About the government cover-up of alien bodies at Area 52.
I thought it was Area 51.
Area 51 is just a decoy.
Naturally, the mystery surrounding it has generated untold amounts of conspiracies relating to UFOs, aliens, energy weapons, and time travel, among others.
Area 51 is actually a paranoid fantasy we concocted to hide the true identity of this facility.
Which is?
Area 52.
The very name of Area 51 is synonymous with extraterrestrial conspiracy theories, and it remains an enormous point of national interest. It doesn't seem that the speculation will stop anytime soon either. Remember when the internet wanted to storm it?
You let the people on that other side of the fence know, who's paying the bills.
Join large-scale battles with military vehicles. The online action game War Thunder has received a major update. Direct Hit. Joining the battle.
Number 2, faked moon landings. On July 20th, 1969, humanity achieved what is arguably its greatest feat, landing people on the moon.
That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
What was the stuff of science fiction just years before was now a reality, and it was amazing. Maybe it seemed too amazing to some. One long-standing conspiracy claims that we never actually set foot on the moon, and that NASA made it up to emerge victorious in the space race against the Soviets. Per this theory, the footage was shot on a Hollywood soundstage by Stanley Kubrick.
You're supposed to be on the moon. I just saw it on TV.
Oh, there's a tape delay and with all solar winds.
And the evidence proving the moon landings happened are often not enough to sway those who think it was a hoax. Unlike some other conspiracies, this one is actually relatively mainstream, with as many as 1/5 of Americans believing it.
They could have easily doctored the moon landing footage, just like they show us photos where the Earth looks round when it's definitely flat. And we got there.
Before we unveil our top pick, here are a few honorable mentions. Unexplained cattle deaths. A conspiracy posits they're caused by extraterrestrials.
How many did you lose?
190.
190 cows.
You tell me nothing's wrong here.
The Majestic 12. Per proponents of this theory, there's a secret government body created by Harry Truman to look into flying saucers.
Like all MJ-12 documents, the authenticity of this burned memo is considered suspect by mainstream historians. But for UFO researchers, this 9-page document is explosive new evidence.
Secret lunar base. Conspiracists think a base was established on the dark side of the moon.
And that's not too far-fetched.
Some have been speculating that the Earth is going to collide with a massive, unseen Planet X. The Lost Cosmonauts. This theory states that the Soviet Union sent people to space before Yuri Gagarin, but subsequently covered it up.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified
make
about
sure
our
to
latest
subscribe
videos.
to Watch
You have
Mojo.
the option to be notified for
Watch Mojo's
occasional videos
amazing.
or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications.
You don't have to do all that, but you can subscribe.
Number 1, Roswell. There have been countless UFO sightings throughout the years, but nothing compares to this one. The Roswell incident is a legendary piece of American history, and it has remained the go-to UFO story for decades. In 1947, what's now believed to have been a surveillance balloon from the Air Force's classified Project Mogul crashed into a New Mexico ranch. At first, the Roswell Army Airfield informed the public that, quote, a flying disc had been found at the site. But this claim was famously retracted, leading many to believe that a cover-up was at play.
Roswell Army Airfield at that time actually put out a press release where they claimed they had captured the real thing. And then 5 hours later, they explained it away as just a weather balloon device.
Decades later, military officer Jesse Marcel remained adamant that what they had recovered was extraterrestrial in nature. Roswell is arguably the greatest alien conspiracy theory of the 20th century. Did you enjoy this video? Check out these other clips from WatchMojo, and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.
Professor is an amazing app that gives you a ton of extra useful information, and you don't even have to tap out to use it. Professor will automatically import the best runes for you and even show you some pro builds too. Before games even begin, you can use Professor to scout.
What did you hear? Speak!
Nothing important. That is, I heard a good deal about a ring and a Dark Lord and something about the end of the world.
Welcome to WatchMojo, and today we're counting down our picks for the top 10 events that could have ended the world.
We're trying to tell you that the entire planet is about to be destroyed.
For this list, we'll be looking at historical events that could have had a devastating impact on the world and its inhabitants, but thankfully did not. Which of these stories do you find the most shocking? Let us know in the
This is
comments
actually
below.
interesting.
Number 10, Chernobyl,
Chernobyl.
1986. If it wasn't for the quick thinking and incredible heroism of the response team, who knows what could have happened with Chernobyl? In the early morning of April 26, 1986, a reactor at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant exploded and sent fatal amounts of radiation hurling into the atmosphere.
The chain of disaster is now complete.
Oh no.
The USSR and Eastern Europe were hit by dangerous radioactive fallout, and the immediate surrounding area became uninhabitable. Nearby cities were completely evacuated, and a massive effort involving 500,000 people and the equivalent of $68 billion worth of cleanup was immediately launched.
It's time to go. After 90 seconds, I will ring a bell. When you hear it, return immediately. Drop your shovels in the bin and proceed down the hallway for decontamination.
The reactor is currently enclosed within the Chernobyl new safe confinement, and cleaning efforts continue to this day. This was the workplace accident to end all workplace accidents. Number 9.
Dang.
4581 Asclepius, 1989. Turns out the 80s wanted to kill us all. An asteroid known as 4581 Asclepius was discovered by astronomers Henry Holt and Norman Thomas on March 31st, 1989.
Spinning through the desolate vacuum of space, bigger than an aircraft carrier, and closing at 46,000 miles an hour.
They also discovered that the asteroid had nearly hit us. Just over a week earlier, Asclepius came within just 425,000 miles of Earth.
1989, we escaped this grisly fate by 6 hours.
Unfortunately, detecting approaching asteroids is very difficult, and this one managed to sneak by the late 80s detecting systems. In the words of Holt, on the cosmic scale of things, that was a close call. If Asclepius did manage to slam into Earth, its damage would be the equivalent of a 600 megaton atom bomb.
Oh yeah, that's a world-ending.
To put that into perspective, the bomb dropped in Hiroshima released just 15 kilotons of energy.
That's one Hiroshima-type blast every second
for 50 days.
Number 8. Igniting the Atmosphere, 1945. Everyone was desperate to end World War II, resulting in the Manhattan Project and the creation of the atomic bomb.
Now, gotta come down out of the clouds, gentlemen, and get into the business of winning a war.
There were a few problems with this. For one thing, some calculations posited a horrifying reality, that the bomb could quite literally ignite the atmosphere and destroy life on Earth through something called runaway fusion. Retests and further studies proved that this was probably impossible, but the threat nevertheless remained. And the worst part of all, no one but the scientists knew about this world-ending possibility.
Hey, Oppenheimer! Oppenheimer! You ought to stop playing God, because you are not good at it, and the position is taken.
They and the military officials went through with the tests, knowing that no matter how small, there was a possibility that their bomb could destroy the world.
Do you love Gantt charts?
I hate rich politics.
Here's how easily you can build one in ClickUp.
Well, not all, but the ones that think they're God.
Number 7. Solar Flare, 2012. The world was supposed to end in 2012.
You sure it's tomorrow?
Afraid so. Right at dawn, the entire planet gone.
Maybe this is what they meant. In July of that year, the sun experienced a massive solar storm. It was the most powerful storm in over a century, and it emitted something called a coronal mass ejection, known as the CME. This is essentially an enormous beam of magnetized plasma.
An average CME travels at about 1 million miles per hour and weighs around 2 trillion tons.
The sun fired a CME directly into Earth's orbit on July 23, 2012. But Earth had luckily passed that exact area of space just 1 week earlier. If Earth had been hit, we would have experienced a catastrophic blackout and been sent back to the Dark Ages.
If we have a really big one, you can have a very strong aurora, but then it can affect satellites and power grids.
By some estimates, it would have taken years and approximately $2 trillion to fix the damage. Number 6. The Bonilla Comet, 1883. On August 12, 1883, Mexican astronomer Jose Bonilla saw something strange while observing the sun. According to him, hundreds of dark objects began crossing in front of the star, and he managed to take a few photographs. Unfortunately, these mystery objects were hand-waved away by the astronomy community as mere birds.
Am I to understand correctly that after all of the information you've received today, the decision you're making is to sit tight and assess?
But were they?
Those birds are getting awfully close.
In 2011, the National Autonomous University of Mexico theorized that the objects may have been fragments of a comet.
What the hell is that?
They estimate that over 3,000 fragments passed by Earth over 2 days, some of which came within just 400 miles. Astronomer Hector Mantarola theorizes that if these fragments had hit Earth, it would have resulted in an extinction-level event. And they thought it was just geese. Number 5. The Chicxulub Impact, 66 million BCE. This asteroid had the power to destroy the dinosaurs.
Events
if
that happened that could have ended Earth.
It would have easily wiped us out too.
90 minutes after impact, the temperature on the ground in Mongolia peaks at 150 degrees Celsius.
As everyone knows, an asteroid slammed into Earth 66 million years ago and wiped out the dinosaurs. The massive asteroid struck off modern-day Mexico with a force upwards of 900 billion atomic bombs. Yes, 900 billion. The impact changed the very climate of Earth, with its resulting nuclear winter causing 3/4 of all life to go extinct.
The plants, starved of sunlight, would have died. The largest animals ran out of food remarkably quickly. The creatures that scavenged them, eventually, they had nothing to feed on either.
This only proves the tenuous nature of life. At any time, a giant asteroid can destroy us with a force of 900 billion Hiroshimas.
Run!
Number 4. The Windscale Fire, 1957. The Windscale disaster is England's Chernobyl. On October 10th, 1957, a fire broke out in England's Windscale facility, releasing large amounts of radioactive fallout into the atmosphere.
There was a high reading. The meter reading went right up to the top, and this was quite alarming, and we came back into the house.
The fire burned for 3 whole days and dispersed large amounts of cancer-causing iodine-131 throughout the United Kingdom. Like Chernobyl, this event was significantly covered up and downplayed by the British government.
But Harold Macmillan told them full disclosure would harm the exchange of nuclear information with America.
It was a political judgment, and after all, who was I to argue with the Prime Minister on a political judgment?
Some things never change. Windscale was considered the worst nuclear disaster in history at the time and directly caused hundreds of cancer deaths.
It was so startling that there are all these people with leukemia that we began to think about the plant.
Luckily, the fire was extinguished before it spread even more harmful radioactivity throughout the atmosphere.
Dang.
Number 3. The Cuban Missile Crisis, 1962. October of 1962 is the closest that the world has ever come to nuclear war. Ballistic missiles were found all over the globe, with America placing some in Turkey and Italy. In retaliation, the Soviet Union pointed missiles at America from Cuba. Both countries anticipated nuclear war, and President Kennedy was forced to create the Executive Committee of the National Security Council.
In that sense, missiles in Cuba add to an already clear and present danger.
They advised Kennedy to invade Cuba and start a war, but he decided on a more diplomatic approach. He quarantined Cuba and demanded that its nuclear missiles be dismantled.
To halt this offensive buildup, a strict quarantine on all offensive military equipment under shipment to Cuba is being initiated.
But they did invade
Following
Cuba.
some tense negotiations, America and the Soviet Union reached a deal in which each country would dismantle their missiles.
The Soviet government has ordered the dismantling of weapons in Cuba, as well as their crating and return to the Soviet Union.
By deciding not to invade Cuba, Kennedy basically saved the world.
Hey, wanna play some video games? I know I do. I haven't seen the sun in years.
Number 2. Soviet nuclear false alarm incident, 1983. If there's one single person we owe the world to, it's Stanislav Petrov. The famous false alarm incident occurred on September 26, 1983. The early warning system of the Soviet Air Defense Forces was activated, indicating that 5 American missiles were headed towards the Soviet Union.
The siren sounded very loudly, and I just sat there for a few seconds, staring at the screen with the word "launch" displayed in bold red letters.
Petrov suspected a false alarm, but he had a decision to make. Either inform high command and launch a retaliatory attack, or ignore his orders, do nothing, and hope that his instincts were right. The fact we're still here tells us what he did.
And then I made my decision. I would not trust the computer. I picked up the telephone handset, spoke to my superiors, and reported that the alarm was false.
As it turns out, the warning system malfunctioned and erroneously displayed American missiles where there were none. Essentially, nuclear war was prevented by one man with the steely nerves of a god.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications.
Number 1. Comet Hyakutake, 1996. The Great Comet of 1996 was observed the world over, and its bluish-green light could easily be seen with the naked eye. That's because it was incredibly close to Earth. So close that it very nearly wiped us all out.
Sweet Mother of God.
The comet was officially discovered on January 31st and could be seen with the naked eye by March.
Been seen in these parts for roughly 18,000 years. This week, a speeding, luminous comet promises to light up the northern sky again.
In terms of earthly distances, the comet was nowhere near us, passing by about 9 million miles away. By comparison, the moon is only about 240,000 miles away. But on the cosmic scale, this was practically right next door. In fact, it was one of the closest comets to pass by Earth in over 200 years.
You guys discovered a comet? That's so dope. I have a tattoo of a shooting star on my back.
Do you agree with our picks? Check out this other recent clip from WatchMojo. And be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to...
Okay. Okay. What was that place called? Something. There's something. Hey, is that?
Join large-scale battles with military vehicles. The online action game War Thunder has received a major update.
Scientists agree the domestic dog has been a trusted pet for around
this one ain't
15,000
the one
years.
I'm looking for. I think it was this one.
Many of us have enjoyed a stroll through the zoo. What would you feel if you were face to face with a 300-pound
Yeah,
tiger?
I don't like this woman's voice. We go here.
911. Is this a hoax or is there truly? No, it's true. And if you see anything, stay indoors.
Remain indoors. Don't try to approach them.
They're on the interstate.
Two more African lions. One is wounded, roaming the property.
It's complete chaos out there. We've got officers going in heavily armed. Now is all snowballed into hell.
Zanesville, Ohio, became one of the most dangerous places in America. Terry Thompson lived on a farm in rural Ohio, along with 56 exotic pets. It began just before 5 p.m. when Terry's next-door neighbor, Sam Kopchak, noticed a problem with his horse, Red.
And so I went through the gate, and I looked, and he went all the way up to the corner where the fence comes together. And when I got about right in here, I saw a black figure. The black figure was a bear. My mother was in our living room of our house, sitting watching TV, when I called her.
And so he told me to call somebody.
911. Yeah, this is Mr. Copejack on Copejack Road, and we live next to Terry Thompson, and there's a bear and a lion out. There's a bear and a lion out? Yeah, right up behind us.
45 and 54, 45 and 54.
5450.
That's me.
4560.
That's me. I'm 45.
Behind Copejack Road. Complaint advised there is a bear and a lion loose running in the area.
I was kind of skeptical right at first. I just thought maybe somebody had maybe seen a big dog or something.
There's a lock on the gate, so I'm guessing nobody's home. If you haven't already done so, see if we have any phone numbers for Terry Thompson, see if we can get hold of him.
Hello. Please leave a message after the tone.
Hi, Terry. This is the sheriff's office. We were trying to get a hold of you. There's a bear and a lion running loose down there by your house. Give us a call.
Huh.
Immediately here to my left, there was a Bengal tiger and a large black bear. And over on the right-hand side of the driveway, there was a black bear and an African lioness.
I need an ambulance on standby. We have got Terry Thompson's bears and lions on the interstate.
Oh, boy.
We could hear the state patrol talking, and they had some type of large animal coming down towards the interstate.
They've got one on the interstate, a bear.
It's a 65-mile-an-hour highway. If that bear gets on the interstate, people are going to start slamming on their brakes. They're going to start trying to swerve to miss this bear.
I just wondered how all these animals managed to get out simultaneously. It kind of became clear that it probably wasn't by accident that they were out.
15 minutes after the first emergency call, the sheriff's department still had no idea how many animals were on the loose. For the deputies on the scene, perhaps the answer lay inside the property.
There were just animals just all around. There were tigers, there were bears. I could see the doors on the cages were open.
60 all units, 99 traffic.
Everything has gotten out. Terry Thompson's got bears out, lions out, and now it's all snowballed into hell.
I told my partner, I said, we've got to call the Wilds.
Hi, this is Dr. Wolf from the Wild.
With a potential 56 animals on the loose, officers turned to staff from the local zoo for help.
I'm sure you're familiar with Terry Thompson's animals? Yes. Okay, I need someone with a tranquilizer gun. Oh, man.
We all just started to move.
Here is the farm, and here is the closest school, which is 2 miles.
The sheriff of Muskingum County made a decision.
On the way to the scene, I made it clear to the guys on the scene that if there were any animals outside the pasture field or looking like they were going out of the fence, they were to be put down.
I searched the house. I didn't find Terry. And a little ways from the house were some of the animal cages. And there was what I assumed to be a dead body down there in front of the cages. He was lying on his back. I had to assume that it was Terry Thompson.
What had caused Thompson's death was unclear.
Now, new details this hour on the police hunt for exotic animals.
There just might be a lion, a tiger, or grizzly roaming in your neighborhood.
As the news broke, the police and public of Zanesville, Ohio, soon found themselves on the world stage. The sheriff's department and the vets on their way to the scene would now have to deal with the crisis under the gaze of the world's media.
Any drug that we use in a dart takes at least 10 minutes to really take effect. So until it's asleep, it can attack you, it can run away.
Do you love Gantt charts?
Wow.
Here's how easily you can build one in ClickUp.
It's still complete chaos out there. We've got officers going in heavily armed.
We have a crew of 4 going in to check on the owner of the property.
If the special response team could reach Thompson's body, perhaps they could establish what had happened to the exotic animal owner and his pets.
The last 3 years, it just became too overwhelming, I think, financially and physically for them.
Despite the burgeoning workload, Terry had continued to amass more creatures.
He couldn't stop acquiring more. I think he just worked himself into a hole. But he just couldn't bring himself to get rid of them.
The special response team shot and killed animals that were close to the perimeter as they continued on their mission to recover Thompson's body.
But we couldn't get to him. There was a tiger hovered over Terry, and he had his mouth around Terry. Through our scopes, I could see a pair of blue bolt cutters. I had no idea at that point what those were used for.
Unable to approach the body until they had control of the animals, the deputies turned their attention to the cages.
We could see at least 2 or 3 lionesses that were inside. Drake Prouty would come up on my side, reach into the door, and then attempt to shut the door and then latch lock it. So we did this through several doors successfully. I look over, and maybe 3 feet away from where the door is, there's a large hole that's cut in the chain link fence. As soon as I saw that, I remember the blue bolt lock cutters that are laying beside Terry Thompson. We realized that we can't secure these cages. All these animals that we took the time to secure these doors, they're not secure.
At that point, it was very clear that there was really no recourse, but I had to give the advice to shoot to kill the animals because the situation was too dangerous for both the sheriff's department and the public surrounding.
Anything that's not contained is to be put down.
More than half of those animals have been killed: lions, bears, sheep.
When the media started reporting on the killing, public support for the sheriff's department began to wane.
You've reached the Skim County Sheriff's Office.
Stop shooting animals! You guys are outrageous! You don't fucking mind shooting animals with live rounds, you motherfucker!
At one point, I was called up to deal with a big bear. I can remember aiming at that bear's head.
Are you crying about a bear whenever you got a deer in your background, bud?
And pulling the trigger and just dropping it. You know, and then we moved on to the next one.
By 8 p.m., the police had killed dozens of Thompson's animals.
This game.
This man released all his wild animals.
With large cats and bears still loose, detectives approached the owner's body to process the crime scene.
There was a head wound, a head gunshot wound. His hands were filled with gunpowder residue. Leads us to believe that this is a suicide.
Over the 3 years prior to the incident, Terry's life had slowly spiraled out of control. Terry Thompson served 10 months in a federal prison for possession of unregistered firearms. While Terry was in prison, the burden of looking after the farm and the animals fell on Marion.
I think Terry's downfall is that when he returned from prison, Marion was not at the farm waiting for him.
6.5 hours after the first sighting, the shooting on the Thompson farm subsided. In order to find out if there were still creatures on the loose, officers needed to start counting bodies.
We got to the point where we had 1 tiger left.
We calculated an estimated dose based on what we thought this tiger weighed. And I took 1 gun and 2 darts with me. I thought for a minute, we're gonna be okay, this is gonna work.
The most god-awful, growl, roar comes out of this thing, and it just leaps.
The tiger went straight at her.
And then the gunshots just rang.
There are 48 animals that we had to put down. Those animals included 1 wolf, 6 black bears, 2 grizzly bears, 9 male lions, 8 lionesses, 1 baboon, 3 mountain lions, and 18 tigers.
16 hours after the first sighting, the shooting was finally over.
Wow.
No members of the public had been harmed. But on a night when the police killed the equivalent of 1% of India's wild tiger population.
There's been stories out that, you know, the Zanesville Animal Massacre, you know, and I guess when I first seen that headline, it kind of pissed me off, you know, that they would headline it like that. But the more I thought about it, that's pretty much what it was.
6 of Terry's animals were recovered unharmed, still secured in their cages.
I always thought, man, if I could have just said one more thing to him, if I could have just, you know, said something to him, but like my great wisdom would have made a difference and, you know, made up his mind not to do this, but I would have liked to, you know, had a chance to argue with him a little bit, you know.
I think I've gotten past it, but, you know, some of those memories up there were, you know, nothing that I ever want to remember again. The sheriff told any of us if we wanted to talk to somebody, it was there, and I know it would be. I don't know, I think that I can probably just deal with it myself. Or I guess just hope that I can deal with it myself.
The drone age has begun in the large-scale military online action game War Thunder. Experience completely new gameplay by piloting recon and strike drones to hunt down your enemies from the skies.
Houston, Texas. A quiet Sunday
I think I
evening in
remember
the
watching
suburbs
this.
is suddenly gripped by panic. A mom can't believe what she is seeing.
All these cars just waiting because there is a freaking Bengal tiger boom in this yard.
Neighbors are feverishly messaging each other to ask where the tiger comes from or who it belongs to. It seems to have appeared out of nowhere.
And this dude needs to be careful. Holy cow.
With their children locked behind doors, the woman dials 911. Then she recognizes one fearless neighbor as an off-duty sheriff's deputy. He is attempting to hold back the man-eater at gunpoint.
Oh my gosh, he's gonna shoot it. He's gonna shoot it.
But the tiger keeps on coming.
The heck? Why is there a tiger?
Suddenly, a man appears out of frame, and he's attracting the tiger's attention. He's claiming to be the tiger's owner.
Get the fuck back inside. I don't know who the fuck this is. Get the fuck back inside.
Oh.
To the neighbor's relief, the man claiming to be the tiger's owner is able to lure it into his vehicle and drive away. Police catch up with him. He reveals the animal is 9 months old, named India, and being kept illegally right under neighbors' noses. Just 2 doors down from the mom who filmed this video.
Oh my gosh.
This is crazy.
India is given a new home at an animal sanctuary in Murchison, Texas.
Alright, time to go back to my conspiracy theories.
The X-Files, one of TV's most popular science fiction series with a recent reboot, follows the adventures of agents Mulder and Scully as they unravel a plot for global domination by aliens with the US government's help. Well, help might be too strong of a word. In reality, the US government realizes that it's completely powerless to stop the aliens' plans, and instead attempts to go along with them in order to secure a better place for itself in the new alien-friendly world order, while also secretly trying to undermine said alien plans. It's a cloak and dagger show that explores the very fringes of real science, and has no shortage of monsters for himself in the first half of the 20th century, thanks to his career in oil and natural gas. One of the hardest, most expensive parts of the oil business, however, is the exploration phase, with companies spending tens of millions of dollars just to find a suitable oil field to drill into. In the 1950s,
let's check. Click on her name and she should be live in a minute. Valkyrie. What am I doing again? Yeah, check out our stuff.